Your book is for basically kids,
Yep.
but also the parents, and you're using it with adults. And so, it can appeal to both audiences. I checked
Mhm.
it out. It even rhymes. It's literally an ABC. It rhymes. It reminded me like of a Dr. Seuss of selling. So it's just
Yeah.
fabulous. So Tom, let's go back in the time machine
Sure.
and tell us, well, first of all, before we even go back in the time machine, let's stay in the present. Tell people about your book. What is your book? And let's start with that.
And so I wanted something to like, what are the key factors of sales? And I wanted to put that into a book. But then I said, you know what? I showed it to one of my managers, and she was like, you know what? It's funny. She's like, I just got a finance book for one of her daughters, who's again, I guess like 7 or 8. And I was like, you know what? I wonder if I can make this like so folks could use it for their kids that have fun with it, and then also for some of the students that I teach, and then maybe the sales professionals, they're running around and the kids go, Dad, what do you do? I'm like, well, let me show you, and they can kind of do that. So it was a bunch of different ways to go through it, and I've always liked poetry and things, so I said, yeah, we can rhyme it a little bit and make it kind of fun.